Recording in progress.
Good morning, members. This is Hajira Sali. Members, we have an apology from the chairperson who will not be available for the next 2 days. In that case, we are going to elect an acting chairperson in terms of Rule 129. The only thing is that we are waiting on members to enter. So far, I see 3 members. I'll check with Mr. Ngoma if he can just assist and check if we have a quorum as yet. Thank you, members.
Good morning, members. Morning, colleagues, Hajira and the colleagues of that form part of the secretariat staff, the department and officials and everyone else that is in attendance. As my colleague Hajira had indicated, we currently only have 3 members on the platform. On a normal day, we would start the meeting, but because we would need to elect a chairperson, so we would need to at least have 6 members on the platform for us to proceed. So we give it 10 minutes, members, to allow other members to join in, and then we can then proceed with the meeting as planned. Thank you so much. Good morning once again, honorable members and guests. My name is Nkosi Ngoma, and I'm the committee secretary together with Ms. Hajira Sali. Honorable members, you would have heard from Ms. Sali that the chairperson has apologized for the remainder of this week as she is away and therefore we need to elect a member that will be acting chairperson until the chairperson comes back. And as Hajira had indicated, we will be doing so in terms of Rule 159 of the National Assembly that talks to the appointment of the acting chairperson in the absence of the chairperson. But before I proceed, can I recognize Honorable Chauke?
No, you may proceed. I will come in once you're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Chauke. Honorable members, we'll follow the same process that we followed yesterday when we elected an acting chairperson, and which is quickly just to provide an explanation. I will proceed to call for nominations. Okay, before I proceed, members, I see again another hand of Ms. Podlani. Good morning, Ms. Podlani, and you are on the platform.
Good morning, Mr. Ngoma, and good morning, colleagues on the line. Mr. Ngoma, you have said we are going to wait 10 minutes to ensure that we have a quorum. Please confirm that we do have a quorum. We don't need to wait the 10 minutes, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Podlani. My sincere apologies for that. When I checked on the platform and saw that there was a quorum, I then just proceeded. Honorable members, I can confirm in confidence that we do have a quorum to proceed with this meeting, and we do have a quorum to take a decision in this meeting, as there are currently 7 members of the platform on the platform. And I'm subjected to corrections by my colleague if there's more than that, but I can confidently indicate to members that there's 7 members on the platform. So I will proceed if Honorable Podlani is satisfied with my response. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I see now Mr. Mrara is also joined in, so we have enough members in the meeting. Honorable members, it's the same process that we had followed yesterday. I will invite nominations and will identify members that have raised their hands. And the member that I would have identified would then state his or her full name and surname, and then make the nomination by stating the name and surname of the member that he or she is nominating. I will then check with the member if he accepts, and furthermore check whether there is a seconder for that nomination. Once that process is done, then I will proceed to call for further nominations. So if I can just request that members that want to make nomination allow the first process to complete, and thereafter, only after I've called for further nominations can members make nominations. Honorable members, I therefore invite members to make that nomination. Thank you.
Can you please recognize me now?
I do recognize Honorable Chauke Adonis.
It is Sokofatso Megan Chauke Adonis, a member of the Portfolio Committee. I hereby nominate Imran Sobrathi to be acting chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chauke Adonis. Can I just check if there's a seconder? Mr. Mrara, are you on the platform? Mr. Mkhacha, you're on the platform?
Good morning, honorable members. I second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mrara. And I check with Mr. Subrathi if he accepts the nomination.
Well, thank you, Temikosi, Secretariat. I accept the nomination.
Thank you very much, Mr. Subrathi. Honorable members, I'm proceeding now to call for further nominations. Honorable members, on my side, I recognize Honorable Makubele.
Thank you, Secretary. Greetings to my colleagues. I want to nominate Honorable Bodlani.
Good morning, Ms. Makubele. Thank you for that nomination. Ms. Makubele has nominated Ms. Bodlani. Can I check if there's a seconder for the nomination?
Seconded, Chair.
The nomination has been seconded by Mr. Shongwe. Yes, thank you, Mr. Shongwe. Ms. Bodlani, can I check if you accept the nomination?
I accept, Chair. Thank you.
Honorable members, Ms. Bodlani accepts the nomination. So we have 2 nominations before us. Can I proceed to call for further nominations, honorable members? Honorable members, I don't see any hands. We have two nominees before us for the position of the acting chairperson, Ms. Bodlani and Mr. Subrathi Matafa. So, honorable members, this suggests then that we have to put the matter on a vote. I will call for members. I will call for those that are in support of Mr. Subrathi as being nominated. I hope my colleagues, Ms. Sally and Dr. Medube, will assist me with the counting of hands. Members will indicate by a show of hands, and such members that are maybe having challenges in terms of selecting that function can then just switch on their camera and indicate their vote. Honorable members, I will now proceed to call for members who are in support. Or before I proceed, I see Mr. Matafa's hand is up. Mr. Matafa?
No, my apologies, Chair. I think I was too fast. I was waiting for you to call for those who support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matafa. Members, can I then proceed to call for those who are in support of Mr. Ibrahim Subrathi being elected to act as the chairperson in the absence of chair? Can you please, those who are in support, raise their hands? And if you can't, as I said earlier, please indicate by switching on your video and your camera and then make your vote. So for those who are in support of Mr. Subrathi, colleagues, please assist me with the count of hands. Currently, I see 3 hands. That I see 4 hands, Mr. Mrara, Mr. Subrathi, Mr. Matafa, and Honorable Chawuke Adonis. That is 4 hands that I see on the platform. All right. Thank you very much, honorable members. We have 4 hands that have been raised in support of Mr. Subrathi. Honorable members, can I invite those who are in support of Ms. Bodlani?
I see 3 hands. Oh, sorry, 4 hands.
You're correct, Hajira. I see 4 hands. Can I confirm Ms. Makubele, Mr. Shongwe, Ms. Bodlani, and Mr. Villagas? All right, members, we have four hands for Mr. Subrathi, and we have 4 hands for Ms. Bodlani. And now the procedure members suggest that I proceed again because we have a tie, and then I'll proceed again just to start the process and then to proceed and call for nominations, and so that we can see how this round is going to go. Ms. Bodlani, you are on the platform, but you are muted.
So, sorry, Chair, I wanted you to please note me.
You are noted, ma'am.
For the sake of progress, Chairperson, can I please withdraw my name and allow my Honorable Subrathi to continue with the meeting? Really appreciate the confidence that the members have shown in me.
Honorable members, there it is. Ms. Bodlani is withdrawing her name from she's withdrawing her name, and as such, then as things stand, we have 1 nomination. Mr. Shongwe, I recognize you.
Sorry, Chair, it was the voting hand. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Shongwe. So, honorable members, we had 2 members that were nominated. However, Ms. Bodlani has since withdrawn her nomination, and we only have Mr. Subrathi on the platform. With that, members, I take that we can proceed with this meeting and invite Mr. Subrathi as the only person so nominated following the withdrawal of Mr. Bodlani to take the chair and proceed with the agenda of the day. And that will also, honorable members, apply to the meeting that is scheduled for Friday. Thank you so much.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you, Minkosi, for presiding over the election.
Honorable Subrathi and honorable members, I'm not sure if it's from my side, but I'm unable to hear Mr. Subrathi, the chairperson,
By
the acting
asking.
chairperson. Mr. Subrathi, we're unable to hear you. Perhaps if you can just start from the beginning. Thank you very much.
Am I not audible, Honorable Temikosi?
You are audible now, Mr. Subrathi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me thank you all members for this opportunity to act as chairperson. Let me also appreciate you for joining. Agenda, and together with that, we would like to receive any apologies for this morning's meeting.
Good morning, Mr. Subrati. Hajira Sali here. Mr. Subrati, we have an apology, a standing apology for the Deputy Minister DCDT, as well as the DG who is overseas on official business. We have an apology for our chairperson as well, and then Ms. Kalishe. Thank you, chairperson.
Thank you so much, Hajira. Hajira, may I please now request that the agenda be flagged.
Agenda is flighted, Mr. Subrati.
Of the South African Post Office business restricted practitioners on the finalization of the BRPs and intention at SAPO to form partnerships. Honorable members, that's the only item on the agenda, and may I request, therefore, that we proceed forward. If there's any other additions we wish to make to the agenda, we could do that now. If not,
Chairperson, if I could just add an apology for the minister as well, Chair. Thank
you. Yes. Yes, please.
Can you hear
Thank you
us,
so much.
Acting Chair? There's an apology for the minister as well, Acting Chairperson.
Without wasting any further time, honorable members, I call upon, I've seen Mr. Anesh Ruplal from the BRP on the call. Maybe let me call upon Mr. Ruplal as a representative of the post office to make conditions.
Morning. Do you want to start, Anush, or can I kick off in?
You can kick off, Juanito. Thank you.
In line with what we agreed on. Thank you, and good morning, Honourable Chair, honourable members. Am I audible, Chair?
Yes, you're audible, and we can see you clearly as well.
Good morning, Honourable Chair, honourable members, and our colleagues from DCDT, and my colleagues that are also on the call, together with my joint business rescue practitioners, Anush Ruplal, and our interim CEO, Fatima Ghani, and our interim CFO, Mr. Lenny Govender. Chair, for the purpose, our presentation is not long, but we would like to start off by just giving an overview, a short overview to remind members and ourselves where we were and where we are now and where we're going. So I'll start off with the overview from 2023, the 2023-2024 financial year. We know that the South African Post Office was placed in provisional liquidation on the 9th of February 2023, and the board was dissolved in May 2023. On the 10th of July 2023, Anush Ruplal and myself were appointed as joint business rescue practitioners of SAPO. Our appointments was ratified at a meeting of creditors, which happened on the 24th of July 2023. And we also had an employees committee meeting. The business rescue practitioners appointment was subsequently also ratified by the Registrar of Financial Services. This happened on the 14th of July 2023. The BRPs assumed full management control over the business, conducted via various site visits and conducted numerous engagement with key stakeholders over this period, specifically our customers. The business rescue process provided an opportunity for the BRPs to continue with the ordinary course of the business and to preserve the goodwill of the business to the that was in place and is still in place at this point in time. 2023, we published and circulated to all affected parties our business rescue plan. A meeting was called on the 7th of December 2023. The plan was adopted by the majority of the voters, either voting in person or voting by ballot or by proxy. The BRPs then commenced with the implementation of the business rescue plan. We went into our Section 189 process. We've discussed this before. It was facilitated by the CCMA, and we started our process on the 2nd of January together with the employee committee that was established. We're having regular meetings with our employee committee representatives. They are representatives of the 3 unions, TIPACU, SAPO, and the Communication Workers Union, together with non-unionized members that are represented by employees from SAPO. I see there's a message, Chair, and you'll excuse me. I forgot actually to my apologies. Fatima, can you just like the presentation? We're on page 3 now.
Good morning, Anush, Juanito. Good morning, Honorable Chair and members. When I try to share the presentation, it says the host has disabled participant screen sharing. Sent a message on the group to say, please allow me to share the presentation. I'm awaiting. Thank you.
Ajira, can you please assist?
You've got Coho Rice, ma'am.
There we go. Thank you. Can you see it now? Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Juanito, over to you.
Mr. Juanito? You are muted.
Apologies for that, Honorable Chair. Can we move to the next slide? And yeah, I just wanted to mention the last item, which was the, can we move to the previous one, please? I just wanted to highlight the fact that we keep on sending our progress reports to the CIPC, and we also have it on the SAPO website. The next couple of slides, if we can go to the next slide, I'll ask Fatima Ghani to proceed from here, and then Anush will take us through the rest of the presentation. Thank you very much. I think Fatima, you muted.
Apologies. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members, the BRPs and SAPO's management team on this platform. I'm going to take the next few slides, which talks to the 24-25 financial year. So the BRPs were in full swing during the 24-25 financial year. They embarked on a branch rationalization process, and the aim was to reduce the branches to 657 branches, which is the optimal number for operating branches, of which 258 branches are USO branches. This ensures that the footprint is still covered with reasonability. There was engagement with the top 20 customers to assist in strengthening the relationship and to ensure that there's positivity going forward with SAPO. Compromise creditors of 12 cents in the rand, those payments commenced from March 24. An amount of approximately 1 billion was paid to these creditors. As we all know, there's an additional 18 cents that's due to statutory creditors, namely SARS, the pension fund, as well as Medipos. That is equivalent to 509 million and is still outstanding today. But from the impact of the compromise and the right back to the profit and loss statement was 7.4 billion that we recognized as a credit into the profit and loss statement. This resulted in a strengthening of the balance sheet and a positive net asset value of 1 billion at the end of 31 March. This was the first time since 2012 that SAPO had a positive net asset value. So you see the benefits that you gain from a business rescue process. 4,875 termination letters for employees who were affected with retrenchments were issued, and that ended in April, and 4,342 employees were eventually retrenched. The employee retrenchment packages were to be paid over in 3 tranches. Initially, we anticipated that the last tranche would be funded through the commitments that was made by the state when the business went into rescue. However, when that was not forthcoming, the final tranche, which was paid in November 24, was paid out of SAPO's operational cash. As Juanito alluded to, the business rescue practitioners continue to engage very proactively with the employee committee. The latest is that there was a temporary employee relief scheme that was submitted in November 24. The process was finalized, and it was now recommended and approved that the SAPO will receive TERS to the value of 381 million over the next 6 months to assist with its salaried bill. And one of the initiatives the only investment that we were able to make during the business rescue was the data center was relocated to BCX to stabilize the IT environment. SAPO found itself in a precarious situation where the business was in business rescue. We all know that the business was filed into rescue because it was initially in provisional liquidation, and business rescue was one of the lifelines that seemed most feasible. And although the business went into rescue, there was an overlap as the provisional liquidation order was still in play. The business rescue practitioners have applied for that order to be discharged. The matter was heard on the 22nd of November 24, and that provisional liquidation order is discharged, so it no longer exists. In October, when I met this parliamentary committee, we spoke about the SAPO's state of business and how, funding was absolutely crucial. We're approaching the end of the cliff. When that funding of 3.8 billion was not forthcoming, SAPO went into preservation and really implemented very stringent austerity measures, which enables us to still be in existence today. We had stricter collection measures in order to improve our working capital. We curbed on our expenses further than what the retrenchments and the branch rationalization. And more importantly, we don't have the ability to make any investment in the business because really with austerity measures, you're just running your business on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. However, I can confirm that today SAPO is currently paying its liabilities in the ordinary course of its business. So there are no creditors that have arisen during business rescue or during the ordinary course that are long outstanding. We've just finalized the preliminary financial results for the 24-25 financial year. We're very grateful that the shareholder, the Department of Communications, has transferred 150 million in March to assist us with our working capital requirements. Year on year, our expenses of 2.7 billion, this was reduced by 2 billion, mainly due to the staff costs reducing by 1.4 billion. And at the end of March, we have 5,892 employees. Year on year, our revenue is 1.7 billion. This continues to be a focus area and continues to be what keeps me awake at night, is how do we increase our revenue base without making an investment in the business to be attractive to customers to bring in more revenue. Our revenue has declined by 700 million year on year. Mainly, it's due to the lack of funding to improve our infrastructure and to be able to make that investment to diversify our revenue streams. External factors have also contributed the competitive landscape. However, even though postal services globally is a declining revenue base for SAPO, it remains a core revenue stream based on how our population is dissected and situated. Digital revenue also remains a key focus area, and the e-register platform was implemented with a partnership with the service provider, and 2.3 million revenue was recorded in the 24-25 financial year. Rental income remains another priority area. With a contract, we signed the contract with the service provider for masts to be renegotiated with a revenue of 8.3 million, and DHA monthly income is 900,000. Rental will always remain a priority area. SAPO does not have permission to borrow against its property currently, but we have a very good, healthy property portfolio that has deteriorated over time due to the lack of investment. Once you invest in that property and bring it fit for purpose, it could be a very good revenue stream for SAPO as you repurpose the property portfolio and start generating income from it. We also received 476 million from the USO. We ended the year on a preliminary loss of 472 million against a budgeted net loss of 703 million. I'll hand over to Anush now. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. Honorable Chair, honorable members, colleagues, everyone on the call. Thank you for the opportunity to present. Just continuing with the slide deck in terms of the business rescue to date. We've given you the highlights for the past 2 financial years, as well as from the time that the BRPs have onboarded. And I think those were quite clear in terms of the achievements. I think this is a graphical representation of the BRP's achievement to date. I think a lot has already been said in the earlier slides, but just to highlight, the achievements, what's in progress and what's outstanding. I think that the biggest item here is in the first block under financial restructuring. And that obviously we all aware of. That's in terms of the 18 cents dividend, and that was purely because the second tranche of funding has not been received of and that's the 3.8 billion. As already alluded to, there were various moving parts and work streams that were running in parallel, for this business rescue. I think I would like to highlight that this certainly has been a complex business rescue. It hasn't been easy, but nonetheless, I think much progress has been made since our appointment. We've spoken through to the branch rationalization. We looked at asset optimization, and those two are looked at hand in hand. Particularly when looking at the independent property valuation, which Fatima has alluded to, and that was successfully done at the right time in order to enable us to activate certain decision-making processes in the organization. Then if you look at what's in progress, that's the business modernization, new business initiatives, and that's really funding dependent. In terms of what the BRPs have done, there were various initiatives like proof of concepts that we're running, and a simple example of that is the telemetry system, together with testing of motorbikes, and adopting a multimodal approach on the last mile. Now, unfortunately, those, as an example, had to stop again because of the austerity measures and the lack of funding. I think what's important to highlight is that the funding is necessary to get the baseline infrastructure up to a level, where it is suitable for potential partners to basically plug into the post office infrastructure network. As we're all aware, there has been poor or no investment over the last 10 to 12 years in the infrastructure. And I think this is not new. We have highlighted this previously. So those items that remain in progress / outstanding really is dependent on funding. And again, as highlighted, there has been no funding. We know that there's no funding of the 3.8 billion coming, even though we had a requirement of 150 million that was used for working capital in an already very austeritized or an austerity mode baseline operation. So the business is not really operating as it ought to be, again, because of the lack of funding. But the 150 million environment did help the entity with its operational costs, in other words, to pay the necessary monthly staff costs and so forth. So I think the last point, appointing suitably qualified, skilled and competent management and directors, that's in progress. As you're aware, the minister had put out advertisements now calling for non-exec directors. And I think that's right, because that's part of the transition plan that the BRPs are now also proactively working on together with management. And we are in discussions with the department around the business rescue having to end, and of course the BRPs having to leave. So that element is quite tricky. It is in progress because, again, in order to attract talent, we need a steady state business. We also need funds and working capital in order to pay those salaries. And I think, yeah, that's an important point to highlight. Next slide, please. Fatima, can you please move to the next slide? Sorry, thank you very much.
You're able to see, Anush?
Yes, thanks. It has moved now. Thank you for that. Then again, this slide just highlights in terms of our sorry, it's one. Can you go back one, please? I think it skipped two.
Can you see? It's the existing business rescue.
Yes, that's the slide. Thank you for that. And this highlights, in terms of our adopted business rescue plan, again, there were two elements to that. In fact, there were a lot of elements, but we've put this for the ease of presentation. We put this into two steps. If you look at the adoption of the plan and everything that was done in terms of being appointed and so forth, obviously that was 100% complete. In terms of where we are now, and that's the last bit, and this has really been the hard part of the plan, and that's the actual implementation. I just want to highlight to members that in addition to doing the necessary aspects and fulfilling the strategic objectives as outlined in the plan, what we also did was implement together with management a detailed turnaround strategy, which was presented to the committee out of camera at our previous sessions. So we're quite comfortable in terms of that the post office has been equipped with a detailed strategy that is viable. Obviously, again, all of this is dependent on funding. If you look at clearly what's the most critical aspect that's outstanding, and the only aspect outstanding is to pay the 18 cents dividend. We're currently in the process as part of the transition and exit strategy, looking at options together with the DCDT in order to find an alternative for the settlement of this 18 cents credited. That will then in turn allow us to discharge the business rescue plan and hand over the business back to the shareholder. I think at this point it's important to highlight that if you look at the sum total of what we've done, or even this presentation, effectively we're handing back an entity, a post office that's virtually debt free. Obviously, that's assuming we settle the 18 cents creditor. So we're putting back into the hands of government a set of assets or infrastructure, and that's largely comprising of the property portfolio of circa 1.7 billion, a footprint, a national footprint that allows us to deliver on its mandate. And of course, an entity that, if you look at the newly adopted or promulgated SA Post Office Act, that allows or basically legalizes the ability to modernize and to future-proof the post office. That's all contained in that act. So armed with that, together with the license to be the sole provider of postal services of sub 1 kilogram. Again, that license application, was to be touching on that. We have submitted our application to the regulator, and we are waiting for the outcome of the renewal of that. At the last session, the DG did highlight or give input that in terms of the act, the SA Post Office can still continue with its mandate until that decision is made. I think that's, in addition to that, we've highlighted the TERS funding, and that's crucial financial support or financial aid that's been received, and that's certainly giving a cushioning to the cash flows or the cash flow deficits that we are running on a monthly basis, at least for the next 6 months. So together, all of this combined has really placed the entity into a situation, whilst it is operating under austerity mode, but it's assisted the process. So the SA Post Office is certainly not out of the woods yet. I do want to highlight that in terms of the turnaround strategy that we presented, we are looking at a 3-year period before the entity breaks even and officially turns around. Again, I do want to caveat that that's dependent on funding also coming into the business. I think we can move to the next slide, please. In terms of partnerships, again, we have reported back to this committee on various occasions in terms of what has been done on partnerships. Again, if I draw your attention to the business rescue plan, the requirement or what we said would be done was to explore partnerships. Partnerships certainly was a very strategic element as part of the rescue and as part of the future of the SA Post Office in order to modernize and to enable various aspects, operational and otherwise, in the business. So this is an element that we took very seriously. On the outset, we created very strict criteria. We put in place an investment committee or a partnership committee at that point, and that comprised of internal BRP members and members of management that would screen all partnership requests that came to the table. And these were obviously largely unsolicited proposals that we received. And what we had done is identified various areas in the post office where we believed partnerships would be crucial and necessary in order for this entity to move forward. And if you look at the columns, that's how we set it up. These digital services, financial services, infrastructure as a service. We've got an international business, logistics, and other. Under other, that's where we looked at various possibilities around the property. As Fatima highlighted, unfortunately, not much could be done in terms of disposal of property because we never received and we don't have that permission from the minister to dispose of property. So in terms of optimizing the property portfolio, that remains a challenge. So in our tenure as BRPs, so we've received 59 unsolicited proposals as at 27th Feb 2025. We've obviously assessed all of those individually as BRPs, and there were no meaningful partnerships that we identified that could move the dial. In fact, what we found was partnerships that were very lopsided, partnerships or proposals that were looking to exploit, the remaining infrastructure or resources of the post office. So there was nothing really that was mutually beneficial, nothing that would move the dial, so to speak, for the post office. Subsequently, the partnership, the responsibility for furthering and looking at partnerships was then moved up a level, and that was through the establishment of the task team comprising of the National Treasury, DBSA, obviously the department, and representatives from SAPO management as well as the BRP management. So the responsibility now for those partnerships is lying with the task team. They have the objective of the task team is to strengthen the partnership's terms of reference and assist with the development of RFIs and RFPs. As we stand, the task team will be fully operational once the memorandum of agreement is approved. So again, we would look to this task team to implement meaningful partnerships going forward, even after the business rescue practitioners have exited the business. I think that's where we are in terms of partnerships. However, I just want to highlight that again, and I can't emphasize this point more. Unfortunately, there has been a lack or no investment into the post office in the last 10 to 12 years. In order to get meaningful partnerships to work, there has to be some investment. And committee members would remember we highlighted, we showed a split of the 3.8 billion. When it was going to be received, if it was going to be received, a lot of that, the bulk of that was actually meant to improve infrastructure. By doing that, that would enable more meaningful partnerships. However, this remains a challenge. And of course, we would look to the task team in terms of what comes back from possible RFIs and RFPs that will be issued. I think that's a wrap. That's a summary of where we are in terms of the partnerships. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to hand back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruplal. Thank you to Janita. Thank you, Anush, and thank you, Fatima, for your presentation. Honorable members, we have received a presentation from the BRPs. I must commend the BRPs. I know last year when we took oversight on the SAPO as this portfolio committee, there was the day zero that we were facing, and we were anticipating the 3.8 billion, and that didn't happen. So let me really truly commend you. Phenomenal job with the team. I mean, to that we are able to pay our creditors in the ordinary course of business. That's phenomenal. That 3.8 billion injection that we were long awaiting, and you managed to get around that. So well done to the team. I must say that this report is a far more progressive report, and we truly appreciate the hard work that has gone in background to really rehabilitate and resuscitate and the post office where it is now. So members, we have received the report. I'll now recognize hands from honorable members to engage with the report before us. Honorable Bodlani, I've recognized you. Honorable Bodlani,
Thank you so much.
Proceed.
May I proceed?
Yes, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Can I just welcome the presentation again? Good morning, colleagues on the platform. The presentation speaks to 487 notices for termination of employment that were issued, but also only 442 people eventually left. Can I just get confirmation that the 533 then remains in employment? And if there was plans to terminate them in the first place, how are you then absorbing them back? And are they going back to their same positions? If I could just get more information on that, I would really appreciate. It is really sad, Chairperson, to realize that the South African Post Office does not have the ability to make any further investments. And I think this really speaks to the state of the South African Post Bank. And like you say, the business practitioners have been here far longer than any of us expected. And I'm glad also today they are already speaking to the exit strategy, which is something that I have all spoken about a lot. and also welcome the fact that there are no outstanding creditors. And also just to confirm that the statutory obligations are being paid, because the last thing we need is the people that continue to be in the employ of SAPO. By the time they need to leave, we hear reports of medical aids, taxes not being paid. So just to welcome that fact. Perhaps a question is, of the universal service obligation branches that are existing, and I think they said it's 258. What assurance can the business practitioners give this committee about the sustainability of those branches? While we have rationalized the post office, the sustainability of the existing branches really should be something that keeps all of us awake to ensure that people are able to access postal services within a acceptable radius from their places of residence. Listening to the presentation, one thing I do worry about is the mental health of the employees of the South African Post Office. I personally would not perform at my optimal best if I was working for an organization like the Post Office, where you literally have something hanging over your head. It's a matter of stability of the entity. So what are the business practitioners able to do, if anything at all, for the employees that are within SAPO to ensure that we guard their mental health? Because if their mental health is not okay, then their outputs is not going to be the best, which will compromise the department, the SAPO ultimately. So I actually have a suggestion to say, maybe a question to say, what engagements can there be with the Department of Health to provide some sort of counseling so that we look after the employees that keep SAPO on its feet? So I do accept the notice that the business practitioners are talking about filing a notice of substantial implementation. What is the implications of that on the day-to-day running of SAPO? And they also talk about this means that they would then be able to hand the business back to the shareholder. And the biggest question is, what timelines are they looking at? And what I never get to really understand is that when we talk about future-proofing SAPO, I worry that by the time the business rescue practitioners leave, there will be a brain drain in SAPO, and there would not be people that are fit for purpose to carry on whatever they would have built over the past few years that they have been at business rescue. That really keeps me awake at night. And they also talk about a memorandum of agreement and setting up a task team for strategic investments. Could I just please also get an indication of what timelines they are looking at, and what sort of people are they looking at? Where are these people going to come from? Is it going to come from the department, from civil society? What sort of skills are they looking for? And I will stop there. Thank you so much, Chair, for your kind indulgence.
Thank you, Honorable Podlani. Honorable Vilakazi, I recognize you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Some of my questions, Honorable Podlani has touched on. Excuse me. And good morning to everybody on the call. Just to take off from where Honorable Podlani left off, I'm also encouraged by the progress that the BRP process is making. And I note that an advertisement has already been put out for members of the board of directors. However, as Honorable Podlani says, who are we leaving in to manage the organization? I see that we are strengthening the oversight level, but maybe the question is to the BRPs: what is the capacity that is there within management and leadership, or operational leadership of the post office, and what are we doing to ensure that it's strong and sufficient to lead the organization after the BRs leave? I also wanted to ask, how does SAPO seek to harness digital technologies and is it suitably equipped for digital technologies moving into the future? We are saying that we want SAPO to be a future-ready organization. How do digital technologies feature there? I recall from a report that we received the last time we interacted with SAPO that yes, there are 657 branches, but the report stated that 104 of these were non-operational. So what's the case? Are there 657 branches currently operational, or is it 657 less the 104? And if that's the case, what is the plan? Are any of these coming back on stream? And what is the plan for that? Another question for me is, I noticed that you said that SAPO has a positive net asset value. I think it's 1 billion rand for the first time since 2012. I just wonder, has that taken into account the outstanding debt to the statutory creditors of 18 cents to the rand, or is that not taking that liability into account? And the report also says that SAPO is looking to repurpose property for rental income, but the interim CE was just saying prior to that there are financial barriers to keeping the property going. So what is the plan around repurposing this property, and where is the funding expected to come from? Also, the question of property, Mr. Ruplal mentions the difficulty with disposal of property of the SAPO. And in a way, I'm glad that you're finding it difficult to do that, Mr. Ruplal, because I think that the property and placement, location of SAPO properties is one of SAPO's biggest strengths. And so I'm concerned, I really would be concerned if SAPO was divesting of these properties. Can you please just let us know what's the long-term plan? Do you intend to divest of the properties as soon as you are able, or is there a plan to use these, to retain these and use them in some strategically beneficial way for SAPO? Whilst on property, I took an oversight visit to Durmail, the distribution center in Durban, and I was amazed really by what's there. It's a shell of its former self with lots of equipment sitting idle that could speed up and really ramp up the operations of SAPO. However, it remains full of potential. And I was talking to the team there, the leadership team there, and really, if it could be turned around, it's clear, or if investment could be made into Durmail, it's clear that it really could move the dial, to use Mr. Ruplal's phrase, in regard to even revenue generation for SAPO. I don't know the state of the other distribution centers, but does SAPO have a plan around refurbishing these strategically important pieces of property? And you talk about the restoring or this application for SAPO and the sub 1 kilogram niche. I wonder, and we've spoken about this before, I just have never really got a clear answer. Is there a plan around really selling SAPO services to government entities and saying, use us, in the way that it used to happen before? I know that in Durban, part of what used to be SAPO's big business before was running postal services and related services for the municipality there. But of course, because of the problems at SAPO and because the service is no longer reliable and all the problems that we know about, many of these government entities have taken their business elsewhere. Is there a move as part of this turnaround of SAPO to gain back that business with government. Another two points as I conclude, Chair, that Honorable Boldani referred to both, but still I'd like to ask them in my own way. In regards to this task team for the turnaround, what stood out for me was that it consists of government bureaucrats. Even if, and I'll put SAPO together with those. It's got SAPO, it's got National Treasury, it has the department. I don't see the angle of business or the angle even of investment expertise. And these are bureaucrats who think the people currently within that task team seem to me to be people who think largely in the same way. And I wonder if we don't need to strengthen that, beef it up with different kinds of thinking, people who have experience in business and who can point at other avenues for investment and expansion that SAPO in its current, that the task team in its current composition may not be able to, may not really be in a position to think of. Is this something that the BRPs would consider insofar as the task team goes? And then lastly, I also would appreciate a timeline, or even if it's an estimated timeline, so that we are aware when we can expect SAPO to hit the ground running on its own after the BR practitioners have pulled out. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Vilakazi. Honorable members, I don't see any further hands other than Honorable Vilakazi. So let me add to the discussion as well. Members from the SAPO team and BRP, I just want to reflect on our last oversight visit to the Eastern Cape, where we witnessed a few, based on those observations. I just want to get a sense, because if that is a picture of what rural post offices are like, I want to get a sense of what has been the change since then. Honorable Bodlani has spoken about the condition of staff and the wellness of staff. So that was the one thing that I wanted to raise, is the conditions, the working conditions of staff. I recall at that stage, staff were involved in cleaning the places and those provisions were not made. So what is, has that since changed? What is the condition of the working conditions for our staff in terms of, I think the air in that post office, it was quite congested. The second observation made was, and maybe the next question is, how much of the mail operationally is backlogged? I mean, we saw a room there of mail that's just been lying there and lying there. So have we since moved on is across, and when I'm using this as our observation from oversight, but I'm really asking a more general question across the board. Are the wheels turning? I mean, and are we delivering the mail? And are we delivering it timely? And maybe linked to that, do we have feedback mechanism or complaints from consumers of undelivered mail or mail taking too long to be delivered? And that will talk to our operational challenges. The reason I'm asking this is, as we, get ready for a handover, I'm kind of want to sense if what we have observed at our oversight, during our oversight, is that tide receding, and are we seeing some light? We also note that there has been an unpleasant breakdown in the relationship with Postbank. Postbank occupied a very strategic place in our post offices, and perhaps most significantly, it brought foot traffic into the post office, and there was a reciprocal benefit. Now, do we still have Postbanks in our post offices? I think it's not, but I'm just asking the question for clarity. If not, what value would it add to SAPO by bringing these post banks back? Because I know they do have their terminals and there were certain counters that were dedicated. Are we trying to heal that relationship? What's stopping us from healing that relationship of working again with Postbank? Itequini, where I reside, we received an email. I'm not sure if other members, honorable members, have received that, regarding the issue of the locks in the post boxes. the complaint was there's no locks in the boxes. So I would imagine that whilst the rentee is paying the rent, there's no locks to secure the boxes. So can we get a sense, and the complaint was it's been taking place, this has been going on for a while. So what is the condition of the post office box locks? And maybe do we have a sense of what revenue is that? I mean, that is something I until recently, I only had a post box. I never relied on the delivery of mail to my home. But now, with the challenges with my post office, where I was in the eThekwini Central Post Office, I mean, Colbert closing, and it becoming difficult, I've now moved my physical address as my postal address. But the point I'm making, there are many consumers out there that will prefer the security of a post office box. Is that a rental income that we are concerned with? Are we letting that go away? So let's talk about the post office rental boxes. Please educate us in terms of the revenue. We've heard of the revenue decreasing, and we've heard Fatima talking about that gives her endless sleepless nights. How to increase the revenue without any cash injection? Maybe educate us. What are the types of services we are providing at the post offices in terms of, are we still doing the registered mail, the ordinary mail, the registered mail? Do we accept light bills at our post offices? How many of these post offices can accept municipal bills, vehicle license renewal? Are we doing that? So maybe just educate this portfolio committee of what we are doing and what we are not doing, and maybe how do we intend to close the gap. The last mile delivery and the state of the rural post offices. Maybe talk to us about that. And I think Honorable Velakazi did speak about the huge asset these rural post offices is to us as a SAPO. Maybe the question to it is, how do we plan to modernize that and make those into vibrant ICT sectors, considering the fact that our rural population are perhaps the most marginalized when it comes to access to reliable IT and connectivity. So how can we make those vibrant ICT sectors for our rural communities? A question I'd like to ask regarding the 18 cents dividend is, what is the value of that? We've heard of the 18 cents. I'm not too sure this. I think it's probably in the previous presentation, but just refresh our memory. What is the value of that 18 cents dividend that is payable to statutory and payroll creditors? And if there's anyone here from the department, we'd like to know what is the conversation in progress towards raising those funds, and maybe with the budget being approved as we're going to be going towards the appropriations. Is there any consideration of that being factored into this financial year, because it's an important requirement before, my understanding is, before the BRP exits. The task grant of almost 380 million rand, and this I'm asking this question on the back of what Fatima mentioned, that we are currently able to pay our creditors in the ordinary course of business, and that needs to stand is that we are not solely so that I understand that we are able to pay that. So my question maybe on the TERS is, whilst the TERS will be used and should be used exclusively for payment of salaries, does that in any way free up some working capital within SAPO from the revenue that is being generated? Does it help cash flow in any way? And if it does, how can we then utilize this cash flow ease to maybe invest in what I think is important, is the infrastructure in terms of software and hardware? I think that's where SAPO is really and truly challenged, and we've been unable to invest in that. I did notice, I'm not putting in this presentation, but in another presentation, is that the SAPO investment in fleet and vehicles. Do we have fleet and vehicles, and what is their role in the current operation of of the post office. I'm very interested to learn and learn a little bit more about the rental income. Vilakazi has spoken about this, the repurposing of our property. But what is the current rental income? Maybe that's the first question. Currently getting from the letting of these properties. Secondly, what is the potential income that we can get if we had to invest in refurbishing them and making them tenantable? What is the refurb? The reason I'm asking that question is also the intention of looking at, because property is a very tangible security for the purpose of lending funds. And if there's a reasonable income available, might well just be a funding opportunity. Consider whether that is something that we can use to raise funds and create that cash injection into the business that is needed. So that's the rationale behind asking that question there about the properties. And lastly, I think honorable, both the members have raised this issue about maybe succession plan, the ability of existing continue with the running of the post office whilst the BRP exits, and whilst noting that a board will be appointed, but we are talking in terms of the executive staff that are currently on place. And last two would be, I do support Honorable Vilakazi's observation that the task team is largely made up of members from government departments, and I do believe it will be strengthened by business leaders who already provide a more realistic leadership in terms of how to make our businesses more relevant. And lastly, the 1 kg, what is the niche, the entire 1 kg parcel, the sub 1 kg parcel, what is the potential income that it can unlock? I know this conversation has been going on for a long while now. But what is the potential income that we are losing by not having this exclusivity or not exercising this exclusive rights that we have over this sub 1 kg delivery? Honorable members, I see no further hands, so I'll hand over to the BRPs to respond. Thank you so much. I'm not sure who will take it first, Anush or Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'll kick off. Thank you for the observations and the questions. So I'll between the team and the BRPs, we will attempt to answer as much as possible all of the questions. I'll kick off with the questions around the partnerships and the property portfolio. I think what I perhaps omitted to state in my presentation, it's not as if no partnerships have been done. There were 2 partnerships that have been entered into and are currently in operation. And so the one relates to the property portfolio itself. We're in a partnership with a partner that puts up cell phone mast towers in all our own buildings. And, that's starting to pick up momentum. We've been increasing some of the rental revenue on that partnership. And then tied into the questions on the digital technology questions by Honorable Vilakazi. Yes, absolutely. Digital technology, digital solutions is what we believe and have believed is core to the survival and the future state of the SA Post Office. And another partnership has been entered into in that area, where we've launched a digital platform that allows for the transmission of e-registered mail. You've got encrypted communications that can now be sent between parties, but substantially it is for e-registered mail and e-registered emails. So that has been successfully launched. It is in its infancy stage. That's one area where it has to gain traction and scale in order to increase. And that talks to the diversification away from the conventional physical mail that the post office has and historically been doing. So those are 2 important points that I wanted to highlight. So there is some, again, maybe not as much as we would have hoped in terms of impact and scale and the number of partnerships, but these are 2 that have been done. But in terms of the property portfolio, I just want to clarify, no, the intention was never to dispose of all of the property portfolios. We fully agree that this is a very valuable piece of infrastructure. If we look at our branch network, it's a combination of owned and leased properties in order for us to maintain and have the reach that we have nationally for the postal services, obligations, and so on. So the intention when the BRP speak of disposal of property, is really speaking to the non-core assets that's causing a lot of noise, that's not really adding value to the overall objectives of the post office, taking away management time, obviously eating costs, attracting unsavory elements like we've got a property that's hijacked, for example, property has been gutted. And bear in mind, these are properties that we found in the state that when we joined as the BRPs. So just want to clarify, the intention is not to dispose of the entire property portfolio, but those non-core properties that we've identified. Of course, that will continue to be assessed. And of course, depending on the board that's appointed and management and even the shareholder, they may feel otherwise. But nonetheless, I think what we've done as BRPs is identified what we believe is non-core. Just in terms of the partnership task team, I hear the comments, and I think that's largely more for the department or our shareholder to answer. I think having said that, I think you're quite right. You mentioned National Treasury and so on, but I think I just want to highlight that DBSA is also, one of the parties to that committee. And I think they bring substantial experience from infrastructure assessments, infrastructure lending, project management. So those skills are certainly on board. Just from a BRP perspective, we do have 2 representatives on the BRP team that's on that task team. And that, like I said, it's largely driven by the Department of Communications and Digital Technology. Then in terms of government entities, it does talk to our partnership approach. So quite rightfully, Chair or Honorable Vilakazi also asked the question. Government-to-government business, we believe, is key to the success and survival of the post office. I think from a country perspective, from an SA Inc. perspective, it certainly eliminates duplication, inefficiencies, and it allows for a more efficient, a set of infrastructure that's integrated to other government infrastructure. So for us, that's not to say that the post office is not doing business with government entities. We still have municipalities as clients. They are valuable clients, and the acting CE will expand further on, on those aspects in terms of our client spread, in terms of our revenue diversification and the types of revenue that we have. But I think this brings me back to the partnership approach or mindset that we've always had, and particularly with the Post Bank. In fact, on the onset, whilst the Post Bank was separating from the Post Office to be a standalone entity, the BRPs very quickly convened a meeting with the full board at the time to actually foster this partnership ethos or partnership approach so that the entities could still trade and, transact with each other on an arm's length basis. Of course, you quite rightly said there has been some challenges. It has been difficult, but of recent we see that there's intention from both sides for that relationship to be more constructive and to move forward. In that respect, we are in the process of signing a few SLAs with the Post Bank. But again, that remains to be seen. I think they've got their own specific mandate. They are regulated, by the banking regulator, and I think there's certain challenges they have. Certainly difficult for us to respond on their behalf, but I think what we want to say is that we certainly, we're very proactive or pro the partnership ethos with the Post Bank and of course with the likes of other state-owned entities. And another good example here is the Department of Home Affairs. Again, very on the onset, they were critical, and I agree there's certain critical buildings that we have that's of immense value that can be repurposed. And as part of our assessment, we ran certain proof of concepts even on the building. But again, the limitation remains funding. There's only so much we could do with what we have. The reality is that a lot of the questions that committee members are asking would have easily been addressed had we received the 3.8 billion 8 or 9 months ago as it was promised, but obviously there is no funding. So it's necessitated an approach where we have to make the best with what we have. And this talks around all issues, even down to operations around employee morale and so on. But again, my colleagues will chip in on what's being done there. So I think in a nutshell, if I look at the property, maybe as the last comment on the partnerships, I mentioned the Department of Home Affairs. So we're very strategic, and that worked out well, where they're now leasing 2 of our buildings, and those are quite significant size buildings. We were also in very constructive discussions with them, as an example, to pilot some of the branches to issue passports. And management will continue with that momentum, hopefully, to make sure that we can start being this government service provider of all services. I think I'll pause there. Sorry, Chair. Maybe a last comment from my side, because it does tie in very nicely with the revenue diversification as well as the partnerships. What we've done as part of pursuing alternative revenues, and particularly with government to government business, there's obviously a post office to consumer business as well, and there's various aspects. And the key aspect around the sub 1 kilogram, again, and there's possibly a partnership potential here as well. Those revenues were decimated. If you recall, the post office ran a very successful courier and parcel business back in the day. But again, and when the BRPs arrived, that was totally decimated. There was no revenues from courier. So we agree fully. That's been one of the elements that we've identified that's very relevant, and that ties in with the sub 1 kilogram license that we own, where we could pick up the courier and parcel revenue. And again, that can be done with more investment, which again, we know is a constraining factor. We don't have it, or alternatively with a partnership. So it's a bit of I've tried to encompass or give an all-rounded response and answer as many of those questions as possible. But I think that's it from my side on a partnership and a property portfolio. I hope that has clarified the questions or the concerns in the mind of the committee members. I'll hand over to Juanito to see if he wants to answer anything before we head back to the acting CE to address a lot of the operational questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anush. Honorable Chair, just a question that was raised, very important question, by the Honorable Botlani with regard to the issue of substantial implementation and what does it mean. Once again, we're faced with an act that, if you look at the act, it doesn't define what substantial implementation is. The idea of us exiting business rescue, we've already consulted as early as Monday. We had a consultation with our attorney, and the department is aware of what we are doing. We're preparing an application, and I don't think it will be a problem, because the minute we issue it, it becomes a public document. But to share it, Honorable Chair, with the honorable committee members to have a look at exactly how we want to exit SAPO. So we're busy with an application. In the application, we're asking the court, and we have to go on the court process and not just file a notice with CIPC. The reason why we decided to go to court is because of the huge public interest that this matter carries. Secondly, because of the number of stakeholders, the huge number of stakeholders that are involved in this process, and the fact that SAPO was placed in business rescue by way of a court order. So we would ask the court to terminate the rescue, and then we would ask the court for consent so that Anush and I can file with CIPC a notice of substantial implementation. So that's what our court process would be. It comes at a very good time, because we see the opening. I think it's now it's been in operation for the last 2 months. We have a specialized court in Johannesburg that deals with insolvency matters and business restructuring matters. So to get to that court, it will take us about 3 to 4 weeks if we go on a semi-urgent basis, for example. So we would have some sort of draft by next week, and then we'll have to settle it internally, talk to the department, get the minister's involvement, so that, and the unions, so that when we go to court, all of us are on the same wavelength. And one may ask, but now you're going to court, do you still have funds? So the way we look at it as business rescue practitioners, in order to enter business rescue, you would have to show that the specific company does not have the financial ability to pay its operational expenses as they become due and payable for the next ensuing months. What we now have at SAPO, and it at least doesn't give us that many sleepless nights, but what we now have is that we have enough funding from June, from next month, for the next ensuing 6 months, that SAPO will be able to pay its operational expenses as they become due and payable. The difficulty is what happens in month 7, and that is something that we're busy discussing with the department. With regard to the 18-cent creditors, Honourable Chair, the question that you asked, how much is it? It's in total about 509 million. Initially we had 5 18-cent creditors, and remember the payment to these creditors is conditional upon us receiving funding. So the Post Office Retirement Fund, we owe them on their 18-cent dividend just over 259 million. We owe the South African Revenue Services just over 125 million. We owe Medipos, which is the medical aid scheme of SAPO, just over 123 million. The other 2 medical aid schemes, Bonitas and Discovery, we owe them just close to 5 million, but we've paid them, so they're out of the way. So we just have our 3 related statutory and payroll creditors that we're dealing with. We've already started talking to these creditors about possible deferment of the payments. The department did ask us to have a discussion around deferring this payment until the 31st of March 2026. We have reached out and we're having discussions with them. We haven't finalized anything. We're meeting with SARS next week to see how far we can get with them. So there's still quite a lot of work left in terms of our exit strategy, but we also don't want to be irresponsible, Honourable Chair, by just leaving SAPO and finding in 4 or 5 months' time that they're back in the same position. Alternatively, there's another liquidation application looming, because exiting business rescue would mean giving up the moratorium that's currently in place that actually protects SAPO from any legal proceedings. In fact, anybody that wants to start legal proceedings, first they have to get the consent of the practitioners before they can approach court. So we're working on all this in the interim, but we undertake from our side to keep the committee in our confidence as we go along with this process. Thank you.
The acting CE, Fatima Ghani.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm going to take off from where Juanito and Anush stopped, which is, firstly, let's handle the statutory creditors. You asked a question with respect to the net asset value, and will that be diluted once we pay out the statutory creditors, which is in the region of 500 million? The answer is no, does not dilute. We've taken a provision for the payout of those statutory creditors. So that net asset value is incorporating a provision for that payout. Having said that, I think it was Honourable Bodlani who asked about employees and whether we are paying employee benefits, or are we still outstanding on those. We pay all benefits, we pay remuneration, including all benefits in the ordinary course of business. So remuneration has been paid on time. There has never been any delay in paying our salary bill, and as well as should it be medical aid, pension, or any other benefits that employees have, they get paid by the due date. So there's nothing outstanding. What is outstanding is the 18 cents, the 18 cents on the compromise for those statutory creditors to the medical aid and to the pension fund. Then in terms of the revenue, and employees, we spoke about employee health, well-being, and, the employee status. With 5,000, close to 6,000 employees, we talk about the property portfolio and that it being an asset to the organization. We must not, forget that the SAPO can only continue its service and be viable. One of its very critical asset base is its employee base, and you value the employees and the conditions under which they work, which is below ideal because of the lack of money to create the perfect working environment. And it's a good suggestion that we reach out to the Department of Health and see what do we do to create that mental stability in our organization. I'm sure that employees are operating, very worried, very distressed, because there's always this hatchet that's hanging on. Are we going to have jobs going forward? Is SAPO going to continue into viability? But I want to say we've done very well under BR, where we've paid employees, we've met our obligations. The working conditions, yes, when you walk into our branches, we make do. When this portfolio committee has been to our head office, the conditions of no lifts, no air cons, the carpeting, it's not ideal. It's not professionally ideal. And, everything requires an investment. Everything requires an enabler, which then goes to the property portfolio. And the question is what rental income we currently earn from the properties. It's about 5 million per month on rental, and on masts it's about 8.3 million. We've done an exercise to say what investment do we need to get these properties it's dilapidated, and just to get them fit and really then test the market to see, we need to do the exercise to see, what is the potential of rental income or repurposing, just repurposing these properties. Coming to the box revenues, I think the box revenues were 46 million for the last financial year. And I'll hand over to Solly in due course with respect to the operational questions. But when you look at our revenue stream, our revenue in the past year, courier and parcel is a part of our business. We still have the traditional postal services made up of franking mail, bulk mail, secure mail, hybrid mail, registered letters, and also inclusive of box and key. That's still a very significant part of our business and will continue to be a significant part of our business. We also have agency business where we do motor vehicle licensing. We do what we call DTT, which is digital terrestrial television. We have some municipality work. City of Joburg is one of our customers. The issue is, when we operate on a month-to-month basis with working capital, and we all understand the Munich's stress in terms of paying their debts. This is one of the accounts that we look at very, very closely in terms of, are they reaching their credit limits? Can we get payment from them? But we value the municipality business. It churns money. We do the lotteries, so those are still part of our agency services. We have a subsidiary called DocX that does subscription revenues and barcoding, as well as digital revenue, which I touched on to say there was 2.3 million. Having said that, one of the members asked about if government, I went through the SAPO strategy with this portfolio committee in committee, and government business remains a key lever into the success of SAPO. SAPO has an infrastructure, dated as it may, a slight investment in it, what I call a slight investment, and I'll tell you why. A slight investment in SAPO's infrastructure enables what we call our last mile or your service delivery for the entire government. If you use SAPO as your infrastructure service provider. And really the key is to take it holistically and take all your government departments, your SOEs, your municipalities, and look at what are they budgeting in terms of their technical last mile delivery, the touch point to the consumer, the touch point to the South African citizen, and what are they budgeting? And if you add up all those budgets for the first year, you can invest in SAPO. And I think that, that will be a once-off investment, where else over a period of time, everybody's budgeting that expense in their P&L. So I think that, there's a good synergies and good economies of scale in that business model. We just need to get the right visibility and the cohesiveness from a government level in terms of accepting and, trying SAPO. Give us the opportunity to be your infrastructure service provider, to be able to deliver on your service delivery for municipalities and for other SOEs. We touched on, the passports and the ID books for Home Affairs. We looked at, there's just a lot of opportunity that's available that, overall, when you look at a country that's operating on a budget deficit, that's a key point in which you could have some saving. And then, that USO obligation, which is an income that, or a grant that we receive from government, when you take into account the new legislation, one of the initiatives that I'm working on is to really look at, that USO service obligation and match it to the new legislation that's been issued, and to see, do they match? They don't. And to really put a paper together to present to say, if we have to meet our new service obligation based on the new legislation, this is the cost of meeting those service obligations. So your social mandate, what would it cost for SAPO's social mandate to be in existence and for us to be able to execute on it? And that paper is in draft. And I think, in the next couple of weeks, we'll have it finalized to be in a position to strengthen. I'm now going to hand over to Solly Geba, who's our head of operations, and he will speak to the conditions of the boxes, the number of branches, as well as any other questions that came from an operational level. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Honourable Chair and Honourable Committee members. As our acting CEO said, I will take the operational questions. And the first one that came up, or if I must summarize, I'm actually very glad that the committee has asked so many questions, which shows that the committee is very involved in the post office business. So if we look at the branches, the study that was concluded revealed 657 branches. Of those 657 branches, we've got about 610 this morning that the doors are open. Of those 610, we've got 553 that's online. The others that are offline are for various reasons on a daily basis, whether there's a load shedding or there was overnight a theft, cables were stolen, water pipes was burgled, and things like that. So the number changes on a daily basis. We strive to get them back online as quickly as possible. For the other ones, when the BRP arrived at the post office, there were already branches that we were locked out by landlords, and we were said to get out. And the study revealed that we need to be back there to be in that presence there. So those are ideal branches that needs to reopen, but obviously to affect that would need some investment. It could cost about 2 million rand to re-establish a branch that is fully operational. So on this, we remain committed to the 657 because the study showed that is the ideal for South Africa, and which includes all the USO branches. Then in terms of the also of those branches and MVL, we've got about 240 branches that are dealing with motor vehicle license renewals. And the team is actively working to increase that number with the Department of Transport. Obviously, before business rescue, where we were locked out by landlords, these machines got stuck in there. But as the process is unfolding, we are increasing the number of branches with active MVL. As a matter of fact, this morning, we've got the Linton Grange online in Port Elizabeth with 2 more machines, and they are fully operational from today. And within the Eastern Cape, we also expect within the next couple of days, another 5 branches to be online. So that will definitely have a positive influence on our revenue with regards to the motor vehicle the motor vehicle licensing. Then in terms of the registered letters service, as one of the members were asking about, the registered letters is still a very good source of revenue for SAPO. And we have found that, especially in the legislative areas, there's more and more of these items coming through. And with the electronic, the e-reg, as Anusha have mentioned, I'm very confident that this is going to take off quite well. Together with this, we also expect that with the implementation of Orto, which we expect this year, that service will also take off quite significantly. Then the locks in the post offices on the boxes. As we have closed down branches, we've got literally hundreds of these locks. So we should not experience an issue with locks, which I will take up with our supply chain with regards to that and that particular branch. It's not something that is in such great demand currently, but it should not be a hassle to get locks in the post offices. Then in terms of the mail backlogs, now when the BRPs arrived, due to a lot of constraints, which was also got to do with enough vehicles and enough things like bicycles, concerted effort was put into focus on the backlog mail. And with the Section 189, a large volume of staff was from the operational side. So, we had to deal with that challenge. But I can confidently say that in our mail centers, in our processing centers, if we want to call it that, the big five, and we've got 23 of them in total, we have no backlogs of mail on a daily basis. The work that comes in on day zero, it leaves those mail centers on day zero to the endpoints, either another mail center or straight to the depots. And I don't have a slide just to show you on the stabilization of the delivery standards since the arrival of the BRPs. But on their arrival, we were hovering around about 30 to 40%. As of last year, November, and then in December, we reached 80% on-time delivery of letters, standard and non-standard letters. And, the upward curve was really strong, but due to austerity measures, we had to put the implementation of the telemetry devices and the implementation of the motorbike project. We had to put that on the back burner because of the investment needed. There was questions raised previously about why don't we just rent or get contractors. A motorbike costs about 25,000. It pays itself back in a very short space of time, and then you've got full control of that total value, that value chain in the last mile. So we see that as quite critical. We work on a factor of about 1 to 5. So for every 5 delivery walks, you need a motorbike. It's a lot more versatile. Nowadays, that the volumes are quite low per walk. So in terms of the backlogs, we work on a alternative day delivery due to austerity and the low volumes currently. So we can't send out a postman with 200 letters a day. It does not make economical sense. So we are running on a 1.5 day carryover in our depots and our far outlying depots. We send teams in there, and they would go there once a week to go and deal with those letters there. So our alternative there is also to look into other ways of delivering there, because to keep a postman there for 3 weeks of a month, only to get a municipal account in the 4th week, does not make economical sense. So we move teams around to deliver the mail. So if you do get there in week 2, you might feel or see that nothing is happening there, but the next week the mail gets delivered. Then with regards to the municipalities, we do have still a substantial number of municipalities that make use of the post office. But from an operational point, and I mentioned it just now, we have challenges with municipalities. They're not consistently bringing us their volumes. Some only brings us their mail every 3rd month, which makes it very difficult for planning. And on inquiring why they don't come the other months, they also have cash flow problems. And then they bring us work that is quite old, and then the post office bears the brunt when the public gets their accounts, and it's a 2-month statement. But in working on the relationship with the municipalities, our sales team and operational team, they work on cleaning their databases so that we don't have RTS work that clouds the whole system, because every RTS letter is wasted money. So we have teams that work with the municipalities, and this also fosters good working relationships with them. And also with the municipalities, with Orto, the sales team is signing up SLAs with the municipalities across the country, because they will all be participating within the Orto project. Hopefully, that will get signed into law later this year. And the SAPO will have a big presence in delivering that. Then there was a question on the refurbishing of the mail centers. If we look at the big 5, and you look at a place like Cape Mail, the refurbishment just off the roof will probably cost about 18 million rand. So, at the moment, it's all about patching until funds can become available. So there are a lot of programs happening just to keep things going until we can get the necessary funds. Then there was a question around also about the numbers of people that was retrenched. The difference there was when people were retrenched, we realized that in certain areas we had to relook from an operational point of view, and together with what do we call, the placement committee that was set up by HR and the BRPs from the unions, it went through a process where people were then asked to stay on. So that's why we did not get to that full figure, but it was necessary to keep those people in those jobs. They just went back to their normal jobs. Then on the fleet of the vehicles, there was a question about that. So that was one of the first things when the BRPs came in, was to stabilize the fleet environment. We've got various service providers, some transporting postmen, some transporting the mail. And at the moment, it's working well. So we are scalable. If the work comes in, if we've got more courier stuff coming in, we can scale up. So that has been stabilized in SAPO. Obviously, if we want to increase our service levels, we have to increase the frequency of deliveries, which will be associated with more trips, and it will increase our expenses on the transportation side. Acting CEO, I think I've covered most of them. I'm not sure if I've left something out. Thank you.
I have. So, Chair, if you will indulge me, I didn't speak about the post-bank relationship, and the exact words used being breakdown in relationship with post-bank. I don't see it as a breakdown in relationship with the post-bank. I think there's a misalignment in the understanding of, business rescue and, what it affords SAPO and how the business rescue practitioners have applied the law and applied themselves in terms of the amounts that were due to Postbank. That it's taking its course, and we don't, from my perspective as the acting CEO and an operating entity, I don't let that influence my relationship with Postbank. It continues to be collaborative with discussions between their CEO and myself. And we support the Postbank's trajectory in terms of its mandate. We do deliver on certain services on behalf of the Postbank. We've signed an SLA with them, or that I've signed it, waiting for signature from their side in terms of a service level agreement for the services that we offer. And more importantly, Chair, the way we previously operated with the Postbank, municipalities, or any other government entities, there has to be an appreciation that that will no longer be the case. We have to be commercially astute, financially astute. SAPO is a legal entity that's held accountable for its performance, its profitability, its P&L, its financial sustainability. So when we start dealing, or when we, want to start transacting with any entity, even if it's the Postbank, we go through a process of what is our risk mitigation. Our branches currently, can they hold the volumes of cash? Can we secure those cash? Who's going to take the risk? Are we able to meet the service level delivery standards? And those are the type of discussions that we continuously having with any proposal that we engage with the Postbank. We do see ourselves still as a critical infrastructure provider to the Postbank, but it's about how we continue engagement and how we do business with the Postbank or any other entity going forward. For me, it has to make good economical, and outside of our social mandate, which I understand that we exist, we have a social mandate, we must deliver on it. But in terms of any other commercial transaction, it will be an arm's length transaction, mutually beneficial, mutually risk shared, so that it makes business sense for both entities. It's a win-win, and the South African economy wins, as well as the South African population. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, apologies, Chair. My name is Tinyiko Ngobeni. I'm the acting DG. There were questions that you had asked for the department to come in, so that maybe before you wrap up.
So much.
Yeah, I'll ask then Ms. Renee Langa, who has been working closely with the business rescue process, to come through on those questions. Thank you, Renee. Renee, I'm not sure if you're able to speak up. We can't hear you. You're still on mute.
Renee, you're on mute. You need to unmute yourself, please.
Renee says she's unable to unmute. She's trying to unmute. I don't know if the secretariat can assist.
Can we assist to unmute Renilwe Molokome, please? Secretariat, can you assist in that? Maybe whilst we wait for Renilwe to solve the technical issue out, department official, maybe let's just hold on, Runilwe, and let you come in the last part, because what I is we do have some time, and I think we'll allow for follow-up questions, and then the department can come in the final with after the follow-up questions have been shared. That will allow Renewal the opportunity to technical glitch and join via another device. So I think that will be the way forward. So we still have some time. We received the presentation and responses. Thank you so much to the team made of Anush, Juanita, Fatima, and Sally. Thank you so much for your responses. And I particularly enjoyed some of the detailed operational responses, because I think we're really concerned about those issues that affect the lives of our people. It's about getting our wheels moving. So thank you so much for the feedback. So members, as I invite you for follow-up questions, please may I request that we limit it to maybe 2 questions, if it's possible, at the most 3 questions. And we also have one item that I would like to bring forward from yesterday, which we'll do at the end of this engagement. We did start the minutes yesterday, but we did not. So with the guidance of Secretariat, I'm quite happy for us to finish that off this morning if we have time. But before any of that there, we'll invite and allow you time for follow-up questions. Honorable Velakazi, your hand is up. I recognize you.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just wanted to ask quickly on the question of the SAPO pension fund being one of those that are one of the statutory creditors that are still outstanding. What is the impact of this on the pension, on the value of the pension fund, of the pension fund of staff? If a staff member were to retire or to leave the post office now, what would the impact of this outstanding debt be on the pension that they would be able to access? That's the first question. The next one is the liquidation or preventing the liquidation of the post office. There was the point made about an application having been made to the court to withdraw a liquidation order. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but then so there's no longer the threat of liquidation, as I understand it, because the SAPO is under business rescue. However, the BR Practitioner made the point that it's still important to shield the post office, to ensure that the post office, the BRPs don't leave only for the post office to find itself a few months down the line again being taken to court for on a liquidation order by, you know, or an attempt at a liquidation order by a creditor. So I just wanted to find out from the BRPs, how do we ensure that SAPO has sufficient sustainability so that there aren't any claims, perhaps even from new creditors on SAPO, that now threaten its survival, maybe through a liquidation order? And then just finally, Chair, one of the things that bothers me about the change in number of branches is you can't change staff on a daily basis. As we've heard, the number of branches changes on a daily basis. So this, how does it work? How does it work that sometimes, like at some point, you've got 104 branches that aren't working, but you've got a fixed number of staff? What happens to the staff allocated to that branch at that time? That's what I'd like to know. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Velakazi. Honorable Bodlani, I recognize you.
Thank you so much, Chair, for the opportunity to ask follow-up questions. Chair, we've heard that there's an issue of an hijacked building. Can I just double check which municipality is that and what has been done to engage the officials in that city? And is this an isolated incident? And tied to the Chairperson, with the branches that we have heard have been closed, one of the things that does damage to brand reputation is leaving the signage up to say there's still a post office here when that post office has been closed. Is there a deliberate exercise to remove signages where the post offices no longer operate? And on the issue of court to terminate the rescue, filing of the papers to terminate the business rescue process, on a semi-agent basis? I'm not a lawyer, so I really have limited understanding. What would make this a semi-agent issue when we have seen that the president, is it a president? The head of the court has spoken to the big court role and how cases are being pushed out. So what would be the justification of bringing it as a semi-agent matter? And if the court does not grant the semi-agency, what would that mean as well? And we also touched a bit on the cost of the legal cost. Just for clarity, are the legal costs built into the BRP cost, or are they a separate costs? I'm not sure even how to ask my question, but I hope I am making sense, because I'm not sure if I understood what Mr. Juanito was trying to explain in terms of where the legal fees are being paid from, because I wasn't sure if he was saying they need to prove as BRPs that they've got that resource, or if it would be paid from the day-to-day running of the organization. I think that was that. And I was going to come back and ask about the statutory creditors. And maybe what I could ask is, in the meantime, while there's an appreciation that some money has been paid, and my understanding is that it will be the historic debt, but the current debt, and for lack of a better phrasing, is what is now being owed. What does that mean for the members and their ability to access healthcare? And I understand the SARS and there's other statutory obligations, but just on the health aspect, what does that mean? Does it mean, because in fact, we saw stories in the past couple of weeks where a member of JMPD was unable to be given medical attention at a specific private health facility because his employer was owing the medical facility. So can they give us that guarantee that we will not be hearing those stories coming from SAPO employees? Thank you so much, Chair.
No, thank you so much, Bodlani. Let me also to the questions and also echo honorable members' concerns. That one of my concerns, let's make sure I didn't miss out any hands. There's no more hands. That I was also enlisted the issue surrounding the there's any compromise to the benefits of employees surrounding the sensitive statutory creditors. And maybe my concern would have been to those employees who have been retrenched. Have we managed to track if they've withdrawn the benefits? What happened to their retirement benefits? It's a substantial number of employees. Did they end up taking withdrawal benefits? And if so, was there withdrawal benefits in as a result of this reduced payment of the statutory creditors? And then maybe the future, those who are with us, their retirement benefits. I think that's a concern all members have raised. Linked to that, Honorable Bodlani has raised all the medical benefits. I with that, and also from SARS point of view, SARS has a duty to issue an IRP5 certificate in which they reflect the amount of PAYE that is deducted, which then gets used by the employee in their tax return. So we just want to get a sense that employees' benefits, if they have been compromised by any of these creditors that have been paid, I think that's an important point. I just wanted to mention that the post office that I had referred to earlier regarding the post, the locks is the Glen Ashley post office in eThekwini, and there are 300 boxes as per the complaint that are without locks. Now, somebody has mentioned that, somebody has mentioned that that shouldn't be a problem getting locks, but the story we've seen in the complaint is very different, that there's waiting for some order to be. Now, I know in eThekwini itself, there are a lot of these boxes that have now surplus because those post offices have closed. I'm sure they can be moved from location A to location B and replace those ones without having to go and purchase those locks in SAPO. You've got boxes that are now surplus that can just if Fatima, you can just repeat the monthly effective income. I got the figure of 8.3 million per month from Mars, but I don't know what it was, 5 million or 500 million. I think it's 5 million. Please, can you just confirm that figure? And I think members, one of the, to me, I think the elephant in the room is and that's not only exclusive to the post office, but across the board, I think, but largely specific to the post office. I think the element of the independent is what Fatima mentioned, that government to government is a key lever for SAPO success. And I think for me, that's an area I think I would propose, this is my suggestion, is that we have a focused discussion around that there. And I'm not too sure if there's a proposal document. Because if we can only get our interoperability right and get the business model right of SAPO, so that SAPO is able to provide business solutions to government, that will be sufficient volume for us to be sustainable. And I think that's the elephant in the room. It requires some capitalization, but if we can get that right, I think there'll be significant amount. So maybe I'm just proposing and I'm suggesting that maybe via the BRPs and the department, we have a focused conversation of SAPO's remodeling in terms of government to government business, because that is the lower hanging fruit for us. Let me now hand back to the BRPs to respond, and then the department will have the last bite. Juanito, can I add back to you or to?
Sorry, Chair, with your permission.
Mr. Vilakazi.
Apologies. I just put in the chat that there was a question that I had asked earlier. I didn't get a response to it about management capacity and how that is being treated in the run-up to the exit of the BRPs.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for that reminder. That was my oversight. I missed it. See, but I forgot to reply. Yes, can you also respond to what Mr. Honorable Vilakazi and myself has raised over and the capacitation of the existing team to take over when the BRPs exit? Will we hand over to the BRPs?
Chair, if I may go first, is that okay?
Sure.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. The reason why I asked to go first is because you've excited me with your suggestion on a focused discussion. SAPO's strategy, we conservatively said 60% of our business can be government to government business. The opportunities are endless. We've only selected a few government departments. We didn't even consider much municipalities because of the ability to pay in our strategy documents to say, we can be your infrastructure provider. It's a win for SAPO. It's a win for other state-owned entities. It's a win for municipalities. It's a win for the country, actually. And really just being the accountant and looking at it very linearly, if you really just page everybody's budgets that they've submitted and you take out a portion of what they're going to spend in terms of their last mile service delivery and you make a little capitalization into SAPO, your returns on investment is endless because that just goes away. It wipes out of everybody's P&Ls. And I think that is the sweet spot. If somebody will just give us the hearing, Chair, just allow us to make this presentation. That is the sweet spot, and really just it's a low-hanging fruit if you want to turn around in terms of profitability and budget deficits. So I'm very passionate about it. I think you can see that because I believe in it. I've subscribed to it, and I see the big picture for the state in terms of that business model. And I really welcome a focused discussion around it. Chair, I'm also just going to touch on the pension funds before I hand over to Juanito or Anush, who'll talk about the actual filing of the business rescue in terms of its, expediting it. And then on I would feel very conflicted to talk about my ability to be the acting CEO. So we let the BRPs talk about the management structure. But in terms of the pension fund, medical aids and the benefits, Chair, the compromised amount that is due to the pension fund is 259 million. I am the chair of the pension fund. The pension fund regulations are that the SAPO executive chairs the pension fund. I can confirm both, and we meet regularly with Medipos, who's the medical aid. We can confirm that benefits are reinstated. So all members, and even at the time that we were not paying subscriptions to the pension fund, the risk portion was paid, meaning that anything associated with the risk was paid for on a monthly basis. It was the retirement benefit in itself that was not paid for. So the benefits are all reinstated and employees all have their benefits and can access their benefits. However, there's 18 cents that's due in both the funds. And so, the employee portion is due that 18 cents. Now, Members who have left the fund, that does not mean it's a write-off. There's a provision in the fund, what we call a later on payment. There's an Afrikaans term. So that means that when the money reaches the fund has the ability to pay out the member his portion of his 18 cents. So that, no member will be disadvantaged because they've left the fund through retrenchments, resignations, death benefits, or whatever, where, their beneficiaries are not going to receive what was due to them. There's a system in place for them to receive that money. Chair, in addition to that, you asked about the state of the pension fund. The pension fund is a defined contribution fund. It's not a defined benefit fund, meaning money that goes in from the employee, from SAPO, goes in, gets invested. What's available to the member is that capital plus growth, and that will remain available to the member. And we have seen a mass exodus of members in the fund, or a mass exodus of withdrawals of funds. There's two reasons why that has happened. Number one is SAPO employees exiting the business. Those that needed their money, exited and took their money. It's available to them as opposed to putting it into preservation. But the second one is the implementation of the two-pot system, where if an individual is distressed and needs to access your pension, you can access your pension. So you still have active members who are accessing their pension because of their financial situation. And that's the reason why we've seen funds flow out of the pension fund. But the pension fund is a viable organization and will continue to be a viable organization, and understands that its viability is linked to SAPO's viability. So, that relationship exists where and even Medipos, they understand that these organizations exist as long as SAPO exists, and we continue to have that collaborative relationship, Chair. Thank you. I'll hand over to Juanito or Anush wants to take the rest of the questions.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just come in with regard to the legal questions that are asked. The Honorable Vilakazi asked about the provisional liquidation order. That is something that should have been discharged prior to our appointment on the 10th of July 2023. It took us some time fighting with the provisional liquidators to get to a point. So that order was discharged in November 2024, and it's no longer a threat to SAPO. It's out of the way. With regard to the question that the Honorable Botlani asked with regard to the application that we want to bring, and I mentioned on a semi-urgent basis because we feel we need to get to court as quickly as possible. The advantage that we currently have is that we have this specialized court that has been operating now for the last 2 months. It's something that we in our profession and the organization of which I chaired before, SARIPA, it's something that we've been fighting for, to get a specialized court that just deals with insolvency matters and business rescue matters. So that court is functional. There are judges at that court. And I think even if we don't go on a semi-urgent basis, and the court doesn't allow us to go on a semi-urgent basis, I think we can be in court in 4 weeks' time. But the reality is we still have a lot of work to work through. And as I said, we're not going to be irresponsible and just file anything for the sake of getting out of this. And in the end, SAPO may suffer. With regard to the legal cost, we cannot represent ourselves in court, so we make use of outside legal resources, like our sub 10 kilogram parcel issue. Bowman's is acting for us in that matter. And in this specific application to exit business rescue, Fescan attorneys are acting for SAPO in that regard. The costs are paid from the revenue that SAPO generates. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I also just want to echo Fatima's sentiment around this focused discussion. I think it's overdue. I think that is where SAPO's rescue lies in.
Did we lose Jonita, or is this myself?
Fatima, what Fatima said around the medical aid scheme. I can confirm we had a meeting with the Medipos.
Chair, it appears Juanito is having technical difficulties.
Yes, it appears so.
Maybe whilst he just tries to reconfigure and get back on, I'll try to answer some of the other questions. I think let's turn our attention to the management capacity question. So, yeah, thank you, Chair, for that question, because, or the Honorable Vilakazi was asked the question. Yes, that is certainly a key element to us. Staffing the post office with the right skill, right talent, and of course at the right position is important. Not just for our exit, but of course for the future sustainability. So as BRPs, the one thing that we did also early on in the BRP process was to reconfigure and put forward a new organizational structure. And I think that structure was in fact mentioned to this committee, early on in the stage, but of course that was a long time ago. So we've continued with that new structure. We've made certain refinements to that. As you could see, we've got the acting CE, the acting CFO. We had to obviously get those positions filled. And whilst it's on an acting basis, again, that can be easily resolved together with the minister's consent now to run a process further, to replace those positions. But I'm happy to say that we've got the two execs in this acting position. The other key position that was identified was a chief operating officer, slash the chief digital officer. So what we've done, because the funding was not forthcoming, we had to rehash again some of the roles. But what's critical, though, is a chief operating officer. And, I think that we've had discussions with the department, and the acting DG is on the line as well. We've explored options around the department assisting us with possible secondments from their division, or assist us with sending suitable CVs through our own networks as BRPs. We've also been activating searches for suitable candidates, to come forward. And of course, then, because we're a member of the UPU, we do have access to tap into the other post offices through the UPU network to see if, we can get a secondment from other global post offices. So the conversation is ongoing. We are discussing with the department, and I think that's one of the more critical roles that has to be filled. And, as is evident, you can see it's not just the BRPs that are answering questions. You've got Solly, there's other members that we also invite from time to time to the committee meetings who, needs to basically take over, or whom we can hand over the basin to. And of course, I think at the end of the day, with the new board as well, when they do step in, they would obviously have certain requirements. We wouldn't want to also make certain decisions, which is then undone by the new board. I think it's all part of the transition. It's one of those challenges or pain points that we have to go through. But I think what's critical is that, we've got the other position is the chief information officer, we do have someone that's filling that in an acting capacity. And we do have vacancies now for the head of corporate, which looks after the corporate support functions like legal and so forth. So they are essentially the COO position and the chief, the head of basically ops. The head of corporate matters that needs to be employed. I think if we look at then the skill set and the ability to attract talent, clearly being in rescue, has certain connotations. I think we've, been discussing and giving comments around discharging and so forth. This also does give more certainty once the entity is out of rescue. I think there's the ability to maybe attract talent, will increase together with the ability to attract partners. I think it's more lucrative when an entity is out of rescue as well. So there's obviously pros and cons that one needs to balance out. So it's a chicken and egg situation. And of course, this has to evolve, once, like I said, the board is appointed and through the transition plan. So I think that's where we are. Are we light on the capacity? Yes, in the areas that I've mentioned, we need a COO, we need a head of corporate, the corporate segment and so forth. I hope that answers the question. And then maybe if I could move on to the next question that was raised by Honorable Vilakazi. Is there, will we have sufficient sustainability, without any claims coming forth? And I think Juanito was going to answer this part. He'll also chip in. So just to remind the committee that when the business rescue plan is voted and adopted, it becomes a binding agreement between us and the current creditors. So by virtue of agreeing to the compromise, and that obviously, we paid 12 cents. That was the first dividend. So creditors have in effect agreed to receive 12 cents in full and final settlement of all their obligations to the company. In other words, there is no further claim that these creditors will have. Obviously, with the statutory creditors, it was 12 cents plus 18 cents, which was dependent on funding. And of course, we now explain that we're trying to find alternatives to that. But I think what's critical is that it's a binding document. Once we've settled, there is no further claims that could come back. Of course, post business rescue, because the business is trading still in the ordinary course of business. Yes, like with any organization, there could be various claims, frivolous or otherwise, that could come. It's a normal part of trading. And that's why I think that I'm emphasizing the head of corporate or the head of legal will be able to start handling these matters once we've exited the rescue. In terms of significant sustainability, I think we must not divert our attention away from the fact that, that there's still funding required. We know that the 3.8 billion is not forthcoming. We've received the TERS that gives us a financial breathing space for the next 6 months in order to pay salaries and so forth. I do want to emphasize that our current cost still exceeds our revenues on a monthly basis. And of course, the working capital requirement is still there. So we still need the shareholder to put in working capital, to put in money when he does have, whatever the quantity may be, to improve the infrastructure. And remember, we've given the comments that once you upgrade the infrastructure, partnerships become easy. It allows for other pain points to disappear, staff morale. A lot of these things are very much interrelated and interlinked. So I think that's where we are. Yes, the significant sustainability will still have to come from the shareholder, understanding and putting in monies at the various points post our departure. Just maybe a last comment. Sorry, Chair, I just want to check my notes here. I think with regards to funding as well, we spoke about the TERS, we do get the USO funding. And one of the elements on the USO funding, for example, we requested an amount of north of 750 million. I think we got 500 million as an allocation this year. So that in itself was a shortfall. But what I want to highlight that is the universal service obligation, and just for everyone's benefit, this is the obligation placed upon us in terms of the Postal Services Act, that we must provide access to postal services to all South Africans at an affordable cost, irrespective of where they are. So that universal service obligation, in terms of how we motivate and the definitions of that, and then we get the USO funding, that USO obligation is largely outdated. It's outdated as a mechanism and a measurement tool. And the reason for this is that communication has moved largely to digital as opposed to physical in the earlier years. So the Post Office, together, with its new legislation, which I mentioned, is reconfiguring the social mandate responsibility, taking into account the material shift in digital communication. So SAPO will push in due course its interpretation of this new broader social mandate. Because the dynamics, if you look at even rural dwellings and the shift of populations, the definitions that have become outdated. So that is warranting a refresh in order for all parties to work on a revised definition and a model that provides sufficient funding just for the Post Office to maintain its social obligation. Okay, and obviously once that's taken care of, we're not saying that that's the all be all and end all. Of course, there's the commercial mandate, and you've heard Fatima, you've heard the team saying we want to diversify. We want to have those conversations. So I think that's important for me to highlight. I know Juanito, I just want to check Chair if he's back so you can continue with his response. Through you, Chair.
Sure. Juanito? Welcome you back.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I just had connectivity problems. The only item that I just wanted to touch on at the end was with regard to Medipos. We had a meeting with them last week, Friday, and if you just look at their solvency ratio, according to the Council for Medical Aid Schemes, it should be around 25. That's the lowest level. They are over 80%. That's their solvency ratio. So as Fatima explained, the fact of the matter is, if anything happens to SAPO or SAPO is liquidated, it will be the end of Medipos as well. I just wanted to make that point.
I think you're having a problem with your connection. Members, let us. I think you need connection problems today. I want to now move the meeting to inviting Mr. Ngobeni from the department to conclude. And I note the comments that Renilwe has posted, and maybe I'll ask you, Mr. Ngobeni, to read out those feedback aloud, so it's recorded on the meeting as well. And as you respond, may I also ask you to respond to a concern that's there will be a handover from the BRP to the new board. We've spoke about the capacity of management, but I'm talking about will there be a handover period BRP to board. And lastly, you've heard Fatima talk about, and we did identify, and that was my suggestion, that I think the elephant in the room is government to government business. And maybe I'd like you to also respond to that. We've got the 6 months breathing period from TERS. Is it possible within, as a matter of urgency, we prioritize having this focused conversation and how we can advance and close this gap in terms of government to government business? Mr. Nkobeni, can I welcome you, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the members and the BRPs and the colleagues from the department. Just to reiterate the comments which Renelo will have made, but just to clarify that the issue, or maybe just to make an observation, that what the portfolio committee has indicated, that the task team is largely based on government officials. It's true if one just look at the entire task team, but there's also a technical stream that has been established, and at the advice of National Treasury, it was decided that the DBSA be brought on board to support the task team, and that will also address the technical skills that are required to firstly come up with this RFI for partnerships. We are looking at business rescue skills, logistics as well, and different other skills. So it's important that we have that support from the DBSA, and the department has had engagements with the DBSA. And that scope of the engagement with the DBSA is not only focusing on the evaluation of the partnerships that will come through. It's also starting to move forward to say, what is the long-lasting financial solution for SAPO? And the objective is that the DBSA will assist in looking at that. And this ties into your question around the breather that we have got through the support from the TERS for the 6 months. Because the DBSA was looking at about 12 months to come up with a solution. But because of this pressure, we are engaging with them to say, how do they then, in the interim, to ensure that by the end of that 6 months, we already have something that's it's sustainable and that can come through for SAPO. So that's the engagement that is underway. And at the same time, of course, we are saying that with this support for funding that the department has supported SAPO, the 150 million environment that was done at the end of March, and also the USO, and also now the tariffs. SAPO, they need to also rework their projections so that we're able to go back to National Treasury again in terms of probably a reduced funding requirement, and see whether there will be appetite to also support in that regard. The department has also, in anticipation of the business rescue practitioners exit, started the process of appointing the board, and because that becomes very essential to have a fully functional board which will take over from the work of the BRPs. But at the same time, we're also supporting the BRPs in terms of strengthening the internal management capability, so that we address both the oversight plus the operational capability that's required to take forward the work of the BRPs. The issue of the government-to-government business, it's one of critical importance. If we are able to convince other government stakeholders really that some of the work that they're doing, they could leverage on the capacity that SAPO has. But it really depends on us, as Fatima indicated that she's working on a paper, that we'll have to start engaging with the potential partners so they become aware of how they can leverage on this capability. And I think also with the district development model, it also could support some of the programs that government has to enhance service delivery. So we are working, so of course, as a department, we understand the constraints that are here. It would have been ideal that if we had the funding, but we do not have the funding, and we're saying, what do we do in the meantime to ensure that even after the BRPs have exited, we do not immediately fall back into this situation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nkobeni, and thank you to the team. I think we had a very useful conversation and discussion. We spent almost 2.5 hours on SAPO. We started at 9, it's now 11:30, and I think it was a nice deep dive. And we appreciate, I think, the chairperson in her absence for putting this item on the agenda, so that we are able to assist and get a grasp of what's going on in SAPO. As in to use my example, I say that SAPO is one of those entities that is in an ICU, and we continue to nurse it. And I think as we conclude this agenda item, I think we take comfort that in the time that we've been here as a portfolio committee, we've seen progress, and we want to really appreciate the hard work that's gone in by the team, by the BRP, by the management, and by the staff that have come together to keep this national asset of ours alive. And we're at a stage now where we prepare for the exit of the BRPs. I think we've stressed the importance of capacitating existing management. We are seeing the board being appointed, in the process of being appointed. And we've also identified that there needs to be the elephant in the room is really greater government-to-government business. And I think, Fatima, we look forward to maybe receiving from yourself and having that focused conversation as a portfolio committee, how we can assist you maybe within our own portfolio of communications to deepen that relationship and support for yourself. So thank you so much, for honorable members. The BRP and the team from SAPO for that detailed discussion on that. Honorable members, as I have been alerted by the Secretariat, an item that we did not finish yesterday was the adoption of the minutes. So with your permission, can I request your support that we maybe request the Secretariat to flight those minutes, Mr. Tembinkosi and Hajira, who will be assisting us. If we can please like those minutes that we did not finish off yesterday. That was 20th.
Good
And let's
afternoon.
just go through.
We've got minutes 20th May. Thank you.
Thank you. Let us scroll on it slowly. At the end, thank you so much. Members, those are the minutes before us. I've had a look at it. I don't see there's any changes that are needed to this minute. If there are no changes that are required to the minutes, may I please invite someone to move for the adoption of the minutes? Honorable Badlani, thank you so much. Honorable Badlani is up for the adoption of minutes. Can I request a member to second adoption of the minutes, please? Honorable Velakazi. Ngiyabonga kakhulu. Thank you so much, Honorable Badlani and Honorable Velakazi. Secretary Chariot, I assume that was the only minute that we needed to adopt.
That is correct, Acting Chair.
Thank you so much, honorable members. Thank you so much, guests from SAPO, BRPs. Thank you so much for this, your participation this morning and for this deep engagement with SAPO. I appreciate your involvement and your support. And Ngiyabonga kakhulu. This meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you, Honorable Subrafi. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody.
Have
Have a good day.
so much.
Thank you, BRPs.